Awesome. We are live. Welcome, everyone. We're excited to be here with design buddies and ladies at UX in Seattle to talk about leveling up your one on ones. We are live on all LinkedIn, YouTube, and X. Haha, controversial. Twitter. As we wait for everyone to trickle in, we love to start with the icebreaker question. So, what is your favorite candy and where are y'all based? Heather, what is your favorite candy?
I do like Swedish fish a lot.
Mhm.
To be really honest, I'm a chocolate person. And I love dark chocolate. What about you
Good
guys?
choice. I tend to be always on the lookout for these little sour brick gummies that I don't
Oh,
know. I really just like it's like they're red and the inside is white and they're quite sour outside, but I love them. Like they're just the best.
are they the berries? I think I know what you're talking. Oh no, they're not. Never
No,
mind.
no, no, it's not the berries. The berries are good though also,
They are
but
good.
yeah,
I like those
those
too.
I don't know the names of those. Just yeah, that's it. And I'm based out of Lisbon, Portugal, so it's currently 1 a.m. over here.
Oh my God, thanks so much for joining us.
It's
Really,
fine.
really appreciate it.
Used
Okay,
to be
we have,
a night owl.
yeah, we have 100, almost 100 people on LinkedIn with us. So thanks so much for coming. Feel free to comment your favorite candy. What about everyone else? What are y'all's favorite candies? Quick rapid fire
Um,
before
I,
kicking
I
off.
can go. I'm based in Vancouver, Canada. I didn't know this was only like a Canadian thing, apparently. Coffee Crisp is a candy that I like.
Here,
Like,
here.
it is something I bring to my US friends whenever I go visit. Uh, and yeah, I think that's one of the weird, like, it should belong in both countries, but really doesn't kind of snacks. So it's a good one.
Nice.
I'm
Nice.
going to do a fast follow on Calvin because I'm Canadian, although I live in Seattle. My name's Sam. My favorite candy are the real Smarties. So the ones made by Nestle that are actually chocolate,
Hmm.
not those
Oh,
tardy things that you all have here. So
Yeah, I guess I've been just quiet because I'm also not a candy person. I think along with Heather, I probably will prefer chocolates and don't judge me, but white chocolates, milk chocolates is what I like more. So
no, no.
that's so weird. Yeah.
I'm like the darker the better. However, I usually can go to 85. Lately, I've been backing down and coming back to 72 because I feel like it's a little creamier. But white chocolate, I don't know. Is that even chocolate? I don't know, Jody. I don't know.
Cool.
Well, dark is not
So
sinful enough. So
So let's get started. Yeah, so we
Yeah,
have 130 people live on
great.
LinkedIn. I'm gonna like
awesome.
set another ping on it. Those of you, welcome. Oh yes, this is the right event. I see some comments trickling in. We do have like a 30-second delay. So just be mindful of that. And yeah, really excited to be here about talking about leveling up in one-on-ones with design buddies and ladies at UX Seattle. And our speakers, Bruno, Sam, Joti, Calvin, thanks so much. They're experienced designers here to share their wisdom with us to level up the one-on-ones and level up the career. Design Buddies is a community to help you level up your design career, whether that be making a new friend, getting a new job, acquiring new skills. And I'm Grace. I founded Design Buddies about 4 years ago when I was a small potato student. I was an engineering, I was studying like bioengineering and computer engineering, wanted to work in UX design, wanted some friends to learn design, and here we are today. It grew bigger, so we're actually the largest UX design community in the world. And I'm also a content creator and a UX designer at a large tech company. And so I love doing a lot of events, both in person and online, design challenges, content, and more. I'm personally based in San Francisco. I actually just moved here recently and moved into my hacker house and bunny house 3 days ago. And so we have a lot of events in SF and fun stuff coming, including our first conference on May 20th called Design the Future with topics in AI and spatial design. It will be in person in SF and online. It's hybrid. It's like free for anyone to attend and connect with each other. And we already have 2,000 signups, so you don't want to miss out. And yeah, we're excited. Let's talk career and leveling up. So without further ado, let's take it away, Heather.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Van Helvoort. I'm a UX designer based here in Seattle. I'm also on the planning committee for Ladies That UX Seattle chapter. The Ladies That UX is a global organization with chapters all over the world. Ladies That UX Seattle is the largest chapter in North America with around 4,500 members. So not nearly as big as Design Buddies, but we hold our own. Our mission is to inspire, empower, and support women and non-binary folks through community. We encourage those who work in, or if you're interested in UX, to join your local chapter. The Seattle chapter, as I mentioned, we hold monthly in-person and virtual events that are free and accessible to all. And that's really important to us, that we always try to keep them free for everyone. You can learn more about us on ladiesthatux.com, or you can find us on Meetup, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook groups. And I'm super excited today. I'm going to jump right in and introduce our panel. I'm going to let everyone kind of take a quick introduction, and I'll just start in alphabetical order with Sam Brittany.
All right, thanks, Heather. Hey, everyone, my name is Sam Brittany. My pronouns are she, her, and I am Director of User Experience at a company called Appfolio, based in Santa Barbara. As I mentioned earlier, I'm in Seattle. What to tell you, I came to my UX career through not getting the architecture degree I set out to get, and went into product management kind of before there was a lot of UX, and then eventually found my way to design, or found my way back to design, as I like to say. So I absolutely love this field and really cultivating the potential in others, including our customers. What else can I tell you about myself? As I said, I'm based in Seattle. For fun, I love to do adventure travel. My most recent trip was to Bhutan, which is a tiny country between India, Nepal, and China. So check it out on a map. That's it. Thanks for having me here.
Nice. And Bruno, and I'm going to let Bruno say his full name. So Figueiredo, what I think it is, but I just want to make sure.
No, you said it correctly. With a little bit of an accent, but it's fine. Yes, Bruno Figueiredo here. I'm based out of Lisbon, Portugal, although right now I'm actually in my hometown, which is a little bit up north in the country. A little bit more about myself. I'm a lead designer at a company called OutSystems, a company in the tech space that works in visual coding, low code in this case, for 20-something years now, so very early players in those games. And I've been a designer for about 12, 13 years right now. I started as a graphic designer, but I immediately have to do a bunch of different things. So I kind of just love doing a little bit of video, a little bit of motion, a little bit of UX, a little bit of whatever. And when I joined OutSystems, I eventually grew into the role of lead designer, and currently I lead a team of brand design in the company. But almost 80% of our job nowadays is digital, is UX, it's working on our websites, on our design systems. And aside from that, I'm also a user group lead on the Friends of Fico Portugal. And I have this side project that I love called Design is for Everyone, with a podcast and a bunch of other stuff that I'm still cooking whenever I have free time, which is almost never.
I feel that. And Miss Jody.
Hello, hey everyone. I'm Jyoti, or Joe. I'm also based in Seattle, and I have also, I think, been a designer for the rest of my adult life. And I think similar to Bruno, didn't start always with UX. I started with product design, actually accessory design, moved into graphic design, advertising, and then found UX, and have stuck with it for the last, I want to say, like 12 or 13 years. Currently, I am working with TikTok, supporting their e-commerce site. So if you're not enjoying TikTok shop, let's chat. But I've been like trying my best to make it the best experience for you all. Before that, also, I've been in the consumer design space for consumer apps and web products. So was fortunate enough to be a part of like Facebook, WhatsApp, as well as Microsoft products. So super excited to be here. And thanks, Grace and Heather, for having us here.
Yeah, definitely. And last but not least, for sure, Calvin Zhang.
Hi, my name's Calvin, based up in Vancouver, Canada, as I said before, very close to Seattle. Some photos almost, can be mistaken for the other city and vice versa. I've been in product design for almost 7 years now, and I've been the founding designer for 3 startups so far. Unfortunately, 2 of them either pivoted or folded. So, my choice in startups might not always be the most accurate. With that being said, I am joining another startup mid-April to, hopefully this one works out. But in the meantime, in between startups, I also do some freelancing where now I have like a very, very small agency that I run on the side, or I guess it's actually my full-time job right now. And in addition to that, I'm also very busy getting ready to have my wedding this year. So a lot of my spare design effort actually goes towards some of that too, like, wedding websites and invitation related things. So yeah, happy to be here.
That's awesome. Congratulations, Calvin. I love that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, without further ado, then I'm just going to start jumping into some questions, and I'm going to kind of open it to the panel. You guys can jump in and feel free to answer. So one of my first questions I've been thinking about are, what are the key objectives or goals that should be established for effective one-on-one meetings?
Anyone want to go first?
Yeah, feel free. Jump in. Don't be shy.
Honestly, I've had a very varied experience because I feel like these tend to be stable, but at the same time depends a lot on the state of how you or your team are going and the things that you're going through, company-wise and things like that. Different moments, I always felt that different objectives and goals matter most, or at least, for example, I have on both ends, me as a junior, and now I have junior designers with whom I tend to focus on growing their skill set more than, for example, giving them objectives or goals around project management and other stuff. It's more like about craft versus other things. So usually it's just, what do they want to take out of those meetings? I don't know. It's very different, and I talked about, for example, about company status or about team status, because I spent 2 years doing basically what I felt was like psychology sessions with my direct reports a little bit, because management changes a lot of things. So I don't know. When I think about key objectives and goals, I tend to change them so much that I don't have like a stable structure at this point. I'm gonna say.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think one thing I would like, just because we talk about objectives and goals, I also want to talk about is like zooming out and not just thinking of one meeting particularly, but also looking at the overall like cadence of like, when are you meeting someone, plus what do you want to achieve over that time. So like for probably a cross-functional partner or like anyone you're working with, they'll mostly be first establishing a relationship. So I think a lot of it will be building that trust in the initial, like the goal would be building that trust, but then also have like one feedback session once a month or something. But similarly with your own manager, I would like try to focus on hierarchy updates, concerns, and like there are multiple frameworks for that. But then make sure that you're also setting one meeting aside for your career development and talking about your growth. So like having the objectives laid out across like different cadences would also be like something I would consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about kind of what you just said, Jody, and I was thinking about you're trying to build rapport and trust with whether it's your direct reports or it's your manager or it's cross-functional partners. You're still trying to really kind of foster that relationship and kind of build on that. What are some strategies that could be employed to create a safe and open environment for honest communication during one-on-one meetings?
I can go if that's cool.
Yeah, please.
I think having been on both sides of this, I can speak to being the direct report to someone versus like someone you might be mentoring or be a manager to. I think the best one-on-ones that I've had with, my manager were the ones where, outside of the one-on-one, like I have a good relationship with my manager. Like I think a lot of the work does happen outside of this one meeting you might have, once a week or once every 2 weeks. I think the one-on-one is not meant to be, the only time, right, that you can talk to your manager about your concerns or your goals. I think the one-on-one is actually the best ones I've had felt more of a personal conversation, right? Not just about work in general, right? But showing that my manager actually cares about me as a person, that really helps to open up the floor for, when I do need that one-on-one to have that extended focused time to talk to him about something, right? That might be very, on the top of my mind for that meeting. And I think the sort of environment is set based on, expectations that were probably set prior to the one-on-one happening. So for example, if I know that my manager is someone who doesn't hold back with giving feedback, right, then I can go into a one-on-one knowing that if he gives me feedback, it's not because I'm doing a bad job. It's just, that's just the way he operates. And I know that's going to happen. On the flip side, for when I've been the one having one-on-ones with maybe like a direct report or with someone more junior that I might be mentoring, I think it's a similar thing where I'm not ignoring them right until the one-on-one, and a lot of the actual I think work-related things are maybe talked about outside of this meeting, and usually those meetings are reserved for like if they have something on their mind that they need 30 or 45 minutes to share about, whether that's what's going on that week with them, or them thinking about how to advance right in their role, or just in general, concerns they might have that they just need someone's perspective on, right? That's I think how I've been on both sides, and for the one-on-ones that I've really enjoyed or got value out of, like that's sort of how I feel is the I guess consistent factor there.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing, it feels like the first part of it is really building on that human experience with whether it's your direct report or your manager. It's really just connecting first as a human being. And it doesn't, we often talk about having an agenda or a list of topics when you go into a one-on-one. That's a really good guide to start with. But I think just having that conversational back and forth, it sounds like that's a really good way to kind of build trust. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would kind of echo what Calvin's saying. There's three things I think of in terms of creating a safe space in any new relationship. One is to start out with curiosity, right? Lead with curiosity, listen, ask questions. It's amazing if you can go through like your first one-on-one with somebody and not share your point of view, but literally just ask them questions and listen. Sometimes that turns into a nugget of, depending on who I'm meeting with, maybe we start every meeting with an icebreaker, right? Because that person, that's how they then like to get into a space of then leading into work. And I guess that was the second thing. And the third thing is to share yourself. I've certainly learned that. You have to be vulnerable as a person as well, and not just, so if you're asking them questions about themselves, it's important to make that a two-way street and share things about yourselves as well on a personal note.
I love that. I think that's something I've personally, in the past 2-3 years, I've really tried to learn to be a good active listener. If anyone's out there, you can Google active listening. And it's really something that is a skill. And I don't think everybody has it. And so really trying to practice that and, really being thoughtful and listening is really key. So I love that, Sam. That was great. Just as a quick, side note to everybody, please put your questions that you might have for the panel in the chat. And my buddy Grace over here is going to get some questions out and put them in for us. And we will get to Q&A in about 20 minutes or so. Okay. Or we can do it now. Looks like we have a question already. Or are we doing that one now, Grace?
Yeah, like whenever I feel like it makes sense. So
yeah, do it. So Stephanie Young, what do you do if your manager only uses your one-on-one time to engage with you? And if you try to step up more time with them, they keep canceling on you. So I'm not sure if I fully, does engage with you.
I think I can understand this because I went
Oh,
through
good.
this a little bit.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah, same.
yeah, so I don't know. So for starters, I don't know about you guys' experience, but with the remote setup, it becomes sometimes harder to create a lot of those moments. We always create some sort of like side channels on Slacks. We try to create tools to keep that connection. But if a manager is only focused on doing their job and they don't really want to engage in those conversations outside of that space, which happens, it's hard, and I get that. Um, I would say that for me, the only thing that worked was trying to kickstart the conversations about that lack of time during the one-on-ones. Try to put out the why behind. I felt like we needed to speak more or to align more or to engage more on a human level, and not only on a human level, also on proper alignment, right? Like using tools to manage projects is not the same as actually having a set of goals and conversations with your manager that truly unravel into results in whatever you're doing or your career. So if that's the time that you are available with them, but you want to expand it, then using that time to start that conversation, making one of those meetings focused on what you can do and treat it as like a little brainstorming session on how can you improve that engagement with your manager in, and if they're not up to it, then maybe they shouldn't even be managers, because it's a role of a manager to actually care about their reports. And I'm sorry if you're going through that. I know that I went through it a little bit, and not fun at all.
Yeah, I think the canceling part's not great either. And maybe that's something I would maybe bubble up to your manager.
Yeah.
Just because, it's one thing if, things get in the way and we have to cancel, but it shouldn't be more than one time, because then you're really only seeing someone once a month or twice a month as opposed to. So I would suggest bubbling it up to them too, because you really want to make sure you get that time.
Wanted to add one additional thing. Like, I've also would consider, like, what do you want to discuss with your manager at this point? Like, if their time is limited, probably they have a lot of reportees, assuming all good intent, obviously would love a good manager who would be available. But in case that's not the option, then probably, like, if you just need design feedback, maybe manager is not the right person to go to. Like, talk to other senior designers on your team or just other designers. Or if you need something advice, like find a mentor to get forward, but like probably use that small time you have with your manager well here.
That's really great advice, Jody.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Whoops. Aaron, where's the line with sharing personal details? That is a really good question, Aaron. That's a good one. Who's going to take that?
It's a hard one because on my case, I've been with the same company for 7 years now, and my entire team was hired by me. We're all close in age. We are all like people. Most of us are like dislocated from our hometowns and things like that. So we kind of bonded as friends also outside of work. So I don't really have an experience, except for, again, the manager that I kind of just mentioned that was not the best. Like the rest of us kind of have this trust level that tends to allow for this. So there's some blurred lines there that we try to avoid mixing up with work. So I don't know what the line would be. And it always depends on how people are open or not to talk. Again, I talked about the logic of almost being like a counselor or a psychologist to some of my reports in times of more stress, including trying to suggest them therapy and other stuff that actually would help them, because I'm not equipped with that. And that comes out of that trust that is created between reports and managers. And it really, really is hard to define that, because if your work is 50 to 60% of your life, there are bonds that are created there that go beyond the concept of what is a workplace. And you might have them with your manager or not, and that's mostly what tends to define a little bit how you handle those, I would say.
It looks like Erin had a follow-up. She was saying, what if the personal issue is affecting work? If anyone has some feedback on that.
I think that one's pretty relevant to me, having also been on, I guess, both sides of it. I mean, I think, everyone probably has a different level of comfort with what they're willing to share. And I think that should probably be the baseline, right? Like, if you're not comfortable sharing something about yourself, then probably you don't, like, no one is forcing you to share it, right? I think you can keep those details private. I think for the personal issue thing, it's in the times that like I've had someone that I'm running a one-on-one for and they share that with me, it's usually, I think in those cases, like we were probably already, pretty close as coworkers and also probably friends, right, at that point. So the personal issue that is being discussed in that one-on-one, first of all, like they were comfortable to bring it up, but also in a way it does sort of relate to the work, right? Because if something is going on with the work or the performance, like it does help me to know why, right? Like why is something going on? And I think it's important to remember that like your job is not to fix every single problem, right, with this person's life, whether that's within work or outside work. But the important thing is to make sure that they feel like they're supported, right, at work, no matter what is going on outside of work. And to know that if their performance is, if they feel that their performance is slipping, that you're there to basically tell them that it's okay, right? Like everyone has an off week or something going on. And depending on your relationship and how, I guess, relatable the problem is to you, like in my case, we came from, similar like family dynamics, right, within our own family. So I could very much relate to the issues going on, right? And it might not be the same if she was talking to like a different person for the one-on-one. For me, when it's also if I share something personal, I don't ever just share it because I'm like, oh, I'm very sad, but this is not related at all to work, right? But if it is, and I feel like my performance has been decreasing, right, because of something personal, then I will bring that up with my manager if I feel comfortable, because I know that they might have some insight to help me work through that problem, right? Not expecting them to fix it, but it's always sometimes nice to just get that extra perspective from someone and know that they support me and that I can, deal with this and then continue on with my work, and that work is not 100% supposed to be your life. And, I think that's how I've been feeling for the personal details related stuff.
Nice. Does anyone else have anything to add? All right. Well, I'm going to jump into something that I think is important for probably several of us here about working remote. I know a lot of us work remote, and more people are kind of moving to that. In a remote or hybrid work environment, what adjustments should be made to ensure successful one-on-one meetings? And I don't know that a ton changes, but I'm sure that you guys have some thoughts around that, especially, I know, Sam, you work remotely a lot of the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think video fatigue is real, right? Especially if we did go from office to being online. And one of the things that I love to do is you don't have to have every one-on-one sitting in front of the camera. There are some folks that we actually go for walks, throw my headphones on, put my phone in my pocket, go for a walk. And that kind of breaks things up. It breaks things up, and it's things that we used to do in the office back in the day that kind of get you out of your space. Again, I have some really fun coworkers, so sometimes we'll do themes of video backgrounds, checking in with people if they feel like they need to actually not have their camera on. That's okay too. I mean, in as much as we want to be able to connect with people, I think it's important to give that space for how somebody's feeling showing up. So
yeah.
And adding to that, I think sorry, Bruno, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think we lost Heather for a second.
We did, yeah.
Oh.
Hopefully she'll be back.
But go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just adding that I think one thing that helped me being remote was just having one documented framework for it. I'm a very visual person, so I didn't go with like a form that I fill out before every one-on-one, but just a table that was like everything this is red, everything that's green, and everything that's yellow, which was like I need support or this is going well. So just having that visually available for both of us, whether we have our cameras on or not, but just there is some reference points been like super helpful for like one-on-ones. Also, I am a very forgetful person, so it's just always good to note down things as I am going through the week till I don't wait for my one-on-one to like start documenting what I'm writing down, what I'm going to talk about.
I think it's, and I know this is not possible for everyone, but seeing your coworkers in person, every once in a while I've learned, very important. Um, it, it is very different seeing someone in person for the first time if you've only been remote for, the last couple years, right? And you sort of go into the, oh, wow, you're taller or shorter than I imagined you to be. But it does create,
Classic.
I think, a different kind of bond, because now they're in 3D and you can actually see the people and, how they are, how they act. So if possible, right, I think it's important to definitely meet everyone you work with face to face at least once a year. I think it doesn't have to be more than that, but it's important to have.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
And I was going to add one last thing, maybe, which is, although it feels sometimes that it's like it isn't heavily dependent on that, but having the right tools associated with how we track these, how we keep these conversations going, on how we explore different moments on the year with our reports, or even on mentorship, like that helps a lot, because if you have a track record of what you've been talking, if you have a set of goals already defined, as we talked in the beginning, that creates structure that makes it feel easier and allows us to do things like going for a walk. Again, like that's cool. Like being able to do that type of stuff. So those tools don't have to be anything overly complex. It might just be a colorful list. It works, right? But I know that for me, they have always been a big help. The ones that I have, for example, implemented by myself, and my company also provides to us, because we have like different moments for specific types of one-on-ones during the year, including, like, I don't know, feedback for growth is one of them, which is literally just focused on middle of the year feedback. But then the other one is like for people to just focus on what they want to learn after that, and we give them space to look for training and things like that. So those moments are more established and structured, because those tools are built like that. They help a lot with that. Sometimes with that disconnect, because they take the load out of having to think everything for each and every little one-on-one moment. They kind of just, structure helps just take off the pressure a little bit.
Nice. Sorry, I dropped everyone. I was trying to be all crafty, and I came over to LinkedIn to see if I could check and see if there were any other questions. And of course, I accidentally logged myself out. So yeah, user error. All right. So Grace, do we have any other ones, or should I move to our next one?
We can move to our next one.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask if y'all can share some tips for managing and prioritizing one-on-one agenda topics.
I'm going to pile on to what Jody already shared, in that for almost all my one-on-ones, I have a shared document with each person that I meet with, and they vary depending on, who that person is, but also what we're trying to get out of it, what level they're at. And one of I think it's a great tool, especially for new individuals to your team, or new designers, to kind of have ownership of that meeting. I think we kind of touched on that a little bit better earlier. And so I'll suggest some things for topics. For some folks, it might be discussing what's going on in their teamwork, and that's something that they need to ground themselves in every day. As I work with more senior folks, a lot of that gets documented in the one-on-one, but we don't actually walk it. So it's there as a reference for me to read later, but instead we focus on some of the bigger, meatier topics that they want to discuss. And so, it's easy to say it depends, but part of it is sometimes starting each meeting by saying, what is important for you to share with me today, or how can I help you today? Might be my first question. And if they want to just talk about what's going on in their team, that's one thing. But hopefully, if there are other things, more urgent things like getting feedback around a design or something, they're going to bring that up. But having that template and kind of customizing those questions to what the person needs and as they grow is super helpful.
Nice. That's actually not the first time I've heard about having a shared document or a shared notebook. That's actually really smart. And I know some other folks that do it. I don't do it right now, but it's something to think about. It's really a good one. Anyone else?
For me, it has helped where one manager, I guess, separated the priorities into, different, I guess, time lengths for, when something is to happen or expected to happen. There's like long-term things to check in on. There's like medium term, so maybe like within the quarter, right, or the month. And there's like short term, like weekly, what's new, right? And I think that really helped me for that one manager because she was very busy. So it was one of those scenarios where, she might have to cancel or like change the time, right? And having these sort of long-term, like different length related topics to talk about was helpful because, it helped keep us on track if she had to reschedule over and over and it was like 2 or 3 weeks later. Then I can look at the list and be like, all right, we're getting closer, right, to this quarter end, right? We should probably talk about that and how that's been tracking in the last 3 weeks. And the short-term topics are going to be very different, right? Because 3 weeks ago, it was a different time than it was now. I think for the more consistent one-on-ones I've had, the shared doc actually tends to go out the window after a few times because I think the frequency is like frequent enough that usually there's something that either I want to talk about or that the other person wants to talk about. And it ends up being like, we'll try to follow the doc, but like the topics change every week. So we just stopped basically pre-writing like what we're going to talk about. And just, it's like, all right, what's new this week with you? So I think it sort of depends on your manager relationship, but definitely when there's more of a gap, right? I know some people do like bi-weekly one-on-ones or monthly one-on-ones, then it's better to always like keep track, right? Because a month goes by, it's easy to forget what you talked about last time.
Yeah, I like the idea of almost, you're talking about short-term, long-term, and like immediate, but it's almost like you can also create a backlog of, topics or things, agenda topics that you need to talk about, but maybe they're not important, isn't that? So you can create a little, I like that. There was a question in the chat, and of course, because I kicked myself out. I think it was basically around with cross-functional partners. It was about best practices with devs. Oh, never mind. It's on the screen. How do you communicate? How do you communicate one-on-one with a developer or engineer, especially since the language is different? Great question, Han.
Create shared languages. I think we know that the language is different, but there needs to be an effort on their side to understand us and on our side to understand them. So creating shared languages is very important. That's why the concept of design systems became so big in the last few years, because it's a shared language. People use tokenization as names that everyone can understand. They use processes, same components, same structures. So it's a shared language, and we, more than anyone else, should understand what the concepts of shared language are, because we are translation method for what business goals turn into products at the end of the day, right? So it always tends to be that we need to do this work of actually creating something that everyone understands from both ends. And that might mean that they need to be introduced to some of the concepts that we deal with every day, and we need to be introduced to some of their concepts too. And that's fine. It just makes us richer in terms of what we learn and what we can do with our jobs. And yeah, shared languages are like essential for this relationships.
Yeah, plus one on the shared language, because I think one thing I've also seen mostly with engineers is that they, anytime we have a one, we don't have one-on-ones with engineers, like it's very rare. When we do, they start often with, here's what we need, here's the requirement, how can you help? So I think I have taken the time, I think last few years, to like stop that, set up one-on-ones the moment you start working with someone. Doesn't matter if you'll be actually interacting with them or not, but starting that relationship from very early on, talking about their family, dog, where do they live, what do they like on the weekends, or other stuff that they're doing, which is not work, which I've seen has like really softened how engineers have started to like work with design overall. I recommend this to my team as well. And we've been seeing that just partnering more at a human level with people has been just easier to like then have a better channel for communication. The respect for design, I think, I've been working in like big tech, but I would still say that design always had to like fight to be on the table, or like convince what our job is and why is it important. So just getting to know the people as human first, starting that
Hmm.
relationship at the very start, has been helpful to like later have easier conversations about what our role is and when should they pull us in. And for like for some last few years, I've been seeing that my engineering teams have been like pulling design first. Like they have been proactive on like, oh, we need designers to be in this room, this is not a call we should be taking. So I think it takes a while, but like build that trust and think of them as humans first and then a developer. That'll be super helpful.
100%.
Does anyone have recommendations around, should you try to make one-on-ones with developers or your PM, or other cross-functional partners? Like, should it be maybe like once a month or once a quarter? Or I know it's hard because we're all so busy and it's hard to add another layer to meetings and,
Hmm.
but what do you guys think? What would be a good cadence for trying to meet with cross-functional partners?
Uh, I've done one thing where like I couldn't for sure couldn't schedule a one-on-one with everyone, right? That would eat into a lot of the time I spent for work. But I did know, oh, these are two engineers that work on a lot of the things that I work on, and uh, I basically put up a meeting on the calendar that was just for the three of us, right? I combined that meeting to be a group meeting, and the purpose of it was basically just to be like, hey, we should catch up on what we're working on, right? And figure out if there's anything I need to be aware of, anything that you should be aware of. Uh, we can skip it if no one has any updates, and or we can just hang out, right? It wasn't like a manager one-on-one where it's like career growth. This was more of a, hey, we work together on a lot of the same things, and it's probably good to get some FaceTime, like, and not just communicate through like tickets or Slack messages, and try to get to know you guys, right? If there's really not that much to update on, but we end up in that room anyways, right? We'll talk about something else. And I think just for the purpose of building rapport, it was very helpful, because then it was a lot easier to do things, right? Because they'll go to bat for you, you'll go to bat for them, and you've established that relationship because you cared enough to just talk to them and not just always text, right? And only Slack when you need something.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. We do something where it kind of naturally evolved into that flow. Just give me a second here. I'm sorry. I was listening to the LinkedIn Live apparently on my phone also, and I don't know, or at least something is running, and I can hear audio, and I don't know why. And I can't mute it, so I don't know. Just gonna put my phone somewhere else. Um, I was gonna say that one of the things that we do, it tends to be that we don't go as close to like 101s with every level, but we create some good cadence meetings that are adjusted to the level of proximity to the work that we do. So, for example, of when you have quarterly stuff, usually it means it is bigger groups, right? But with groups that are like cross-functional or close enough, we tend to have something like a monthly sync or some sort of work like they're in that format. And it's never one-on-one. It tends to be at least 1 to 2 or one too many. We also started something new right now, which is like a quarterly sync just for all designers too, because that also happens that it's not just the cross-functional the issue, it's that everyone is working on similar challenges but on different parts of the company, and it tends to be that design organization it's hard to like actually manage and balance those things. But yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else have any? All right, well, I'm going to jump into our next question. And I think if we don't have any in the chat, how can you leverage so this is for, thinking from with the IC lens on, how can you leverage your manager's strengths for your own growth?
That's super interesting.
I was going to say, Jody, you might be good to answer this because you've lived on both sides very recently.
Yeah, because all my manager trainings are about, you as a manager need to think about what the people's strengths are. You need to be the multiplier. So this question opens like the framework for it being a two-way street, which I don't think a lot of ICs think like that. And like you like really need to start to be smart in your job and like know that your manager is in service of you as much as you are in service of the manager or like the work that you're doing. So I think I have personally had some managers who were really good at storytelling as an example. So what I started to do was not just use them in my meetings to come and tell my stories, but like work on my presentations with them, get like personal feedback and improve stuff. But I think on the management side, it's also like every time you help your reportee, the expectation is you're grooming them. So every time as an IC, you are getting any input from your manager, just also take that as learning and start to apply that so that you are actually showing strength and growth as well and not just like always calling for help. I think conflict management is like a great way to like involve your managers, when I think majority of the time that's what that's the reason I kind of wanted to move away from management, because all I was doing was just like helping people like put fires out here and there, and I was like, I would rather do IC work. But on that note, like if you have a manager who is great with that on whatever channels they are, if they're good with like live meetings, and set up a forum when they can come in and like help you out. If they're good with chat, or if they're good with just maybe escalating it to the other managers, or like talking, like clearing your path that way, just use their strength and like what you need from them. But also just be careful that, not careful really, but just be aware that every time you would be needing help, you should also start to next time prepare better, or like show that you are learning from that experience as well.
Yeah, one thing that has always driven me nuts is, especially in tech and in flat orgs, is you're new to the industry and you first day on the job, and your manager's like, okay, you own your career, you own your future, and you're like, okay, I've never done this before. What does that even mean? Like, I don't even know what that looks like. It took me years to figure that out. Nobody sat down and said, here's what career pathing could be. And I absolutely think it's a manager's responsibility to help that person understand, here's what your career could be. It's the same thing with, here's what our one-on-ones could be if you don't know where to start, right? I think we have to help people have those conversations. We don't need to answer it, but we need to help them get there. So totally agree with everything that Jody just said. And one flip side, I think, is that once you recognize the strengths that your manager has, don't be afraid to go seek mentorship beyond that manager. And in fact, you can engage your manager in that. Be like, hey, here are some things that I'm looking for help on. Do you have anybody that you know of in your network or in the company who might be a good fit for this? So again, you don't necessarily have to have all the answers, but you can recognize what your manager does offer, and then don't be afraid to ask for help from other places as well.
Just to add to that, if I can, I think this is sort of similar to, I guess, when you grow up and your parents tell you to do something and you're like, oh, that's so stupid. Like, why would I ever do that? And 20 years later, you're like, oh, they were right this entire time. And suddenly what your parents told you is like relevant. I think part of this is like some managers will have strengths or pieces of wisdom that they share that might not be relevant to you at the time, but it is still important, I think, to just remember it or acknowledge it, or just you don't have to act on it, right? But some of that does become relevant later on. For me, it was when I started my first job, right? Like it was like, oh, I want to be here forever, see it through to the end, like whatever, right? And my manager was like, realistically, uh, not all of us. It's very unlikely that all of us will be here, right, for forever, right? We'll probably move on to different opportunities. And I was like, well, that's not me, right? That can't be me. But as it turns out, that was me maybe a year later. And then the advice she gave for what to do in that situation suddenly became relevant again. And I think for me at that point, we had both left that position, but thankfully I could still reach out to her, right, through another medium and be like, hey, what you said was actually very, very relevant. Can I, ask you more about this now that I'm in this situation?
Anybody else?
I don't know. On my end, when I think about leverage managers' strengths, my first manager, um, I had my first manager when I joined this company, because before that I was a freelance. So I basically was working for myself. And it really stepped up into mentoring me in a lot of ways on especially a very specific part of my life, which I still feel a lot to do, which is well-being and mental health and things that I sometimes get derailed on due to being a workaholic. And that also comes a little bit out of the manager's understanding of what they can offer many times. And I was lucky enough to have a manager that knew what he could offer and then redirected me to other people when he thought that I could learn more from others. Um, but yeah, outside of that, I don't really have like a big point of view on how to manage those or to leverage those strengths, mostly because I don't have as much of a solid strategy there. I would say though that when you get to redirect, or if you can have someone redirecting you to other people in the company, for example, it's great to start growing your relationship skills inside the org, which is something that tends to be reduced more and more, especially now that a lot of us are still in remote structures. But with growing organizations, with varied situations in the job, the manager that understands that you need someone else to complement tends to be the one that helps you also become better involved with the company, better involved with the strategy, putting you in an advantageous position, because you're not only getting mentored or supported by multiple roles, but you're also getting to know how others in other roles specifically work, and that is always valuable information for you to kind of grow on whatever your role are.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from all of you is a couple of things. One, it's a really good idea to have different mentors, possibly for different things. I know I personally have that, where I have a fantastic mentor, shout out to Randy, who is I work with him solely on visual design. And then I have other designers that I work more with strategy. So it's really smart to have different mentors. But what I'm also hearing that I think Sam specifically mentioned was, if your manager can't necessarily help you with a skill you're looking to grow, think about asking them how they would leverage their network to possibly even help you. So it could be a way to kind of get in the door if you don't have a direct line of communication with someone that could be a mentor to fill that skill you're looking to grow in. Really good feedback, you guys. I appreciate that. I think we might have time for one or two more. We're getting close on time. So if anyone has anything, put it in the chat, and I'm going to jump into one quick question. How can you gather team feedback to help you understand more about your own strengths and opportunities?
Oof.
Yeah. Is a doozy.
So I'm not sure like if all companies are that. Like luckily, the places that I've worked with had peer feedback. It had 360 feedback, so you have to get that. And with I think Meta and even with TikTok, it's more transparent. So you do put in a lot of effort to write feedback because it's going to be received by the person you are giving the feedback to, not just their managers. So like I think that kind of builds like a good system if it's like enforced top down and it's a company culture that everyone
Mhm.
gives open and like more critical feedback. But I think the other ways that I've seen, I personally feel like a lot of times when you in one-on-ones like try to gather more feedback, not a lot of times people are more open or willing to share more like especially negative feedback about you or like just constructive feedback about you. So what's been helpful is to, I bet like everyone runs like retrospectives for their teams, and having a control session for what could we do better as a team. So it's not just personal feedback for you, but just personal feedback on how is the interaction been with like say design to engineering, PMs to design, or within design, like how could we all collaborate better. So making it more business centric rather than the person, but still getting to the point of how can we work together better kind of gives you that feedback. So probably helping you understand what more can you do. And if
Mhm.
earlier we spoke about like having the safe space, so if you feel like you have that relationship with the person that you're having that one-on-one, whether it's if it's an XFN or your manager, be open. Like I think honesty and like having that transparency is super helpful. Like I as managers also like people expect feedback, so I think it takes a while to build that trust, but like that channel should always be open for you to give your honest
Mhm.
feedback and get honest feedback at that time.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
think so conditioned, we're so afraid, to kind of to hurt somebody or to share that feedback, and we're just kind of conditioned in society in some cases to do that. And I think like um, one of the things that we're working on just within UX at my company is practicing feedback. So there are tons of models out there. The one that I love is the SBI method. It's situation, behavior, impact. It's a framework that just gives a very, here's the thing that happened, here's your behavior, and here's how it made me feel, right? And once we start to kind of engage in that more frequently, I think it will become, it gets more comfortable. But the other thing too is if one of the things I would encourage my team members to do is if they are given feedback and they feel like it's something they want to actually grow in, is to go seek that person out, assuming that they got the feedback from an individual they can name, and say, hey, maybe they just got out of a meeting with that person. Hey, I just wanted to check in with you. There's some things I'm working on. Do you have any feedback for me? So actually encouraging folks to then go seek out the feedback from their peers and their colleagues if they are trying to work on a strength, because that certainly opens the door. It helps opens the door.
I think that one thing that we did, not that we do regularly, is we have also the process of gathering feedback from others at least twice a year, which is great. Like a check at middle checkpoint, and then in an evaluation moment, feedback from others is always important. And one of our baseline advices is always try to get at least three people to give you feedback, and use that as a chance to, if you can, have someone that is below you, at the same level as you, and above you, in a sense that those are three different perspectives that might help you to understand how your job is also seen from different sides of the work lanes. I know some people won't have people below them; they will only have at their level or on top. Then we usually say at least someone you worked on a smaller project and someone you worked with on a bigger project. So always the concept of like if you're gathering feedback, go after the feedback that might differ in perspective, because that might also give you better insights at what you're looking. And one last thing is we tend to have generalized questions, but if you can be specific with what you're asking feedback about. Is it about a project? Is it about a specific interaction? Is it about a set of deliverables that you had that you know that you need to get something out of it because you felt like it went wrong or it went very well, but you don't really understand why? It can happen. I was lucky enough to have a few of those. So it's just intentionality and the type of feedback that we're looking for is very important. Um, and it can easily be done in a more personal way when you have more boundaries. It's like the UX rules of like narrowing down the path of the user to the answer that you want them to get to. It's the same thing at this point, right? Like you narrow down the way that you're asking for that feedback, and that will give you probably a better answer, better information about your relationship with that third party, someone from your team or that you've worked with on another project.
That's awesome. Anyone else, or should we wrap it up? I was really, I am so grateful that you guys spent this time with us today. This was so much good nuggets. I'm taking notes on my own over here. I just wanted to let everyone know who's still with us that we have a link in the chat and also a link on the screen with a resource guide that we put together. So there's some good articles, some good books, some good takeaways from this. And Sam spent some time and put together some templates for everyone. So that's really exciting. Just to kind of take a look. I'm sure you already have something in place, but in case you don't, these could be a good place to start. So hopefully that helps you too. And yeah, if there are no other questions, I'll pass it on to Miss Grace.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. We really appreciate all your insights here. I will send a follow, if you signed up on Luma, I'll send a follow-up about the templates as well that you can use. And yeah, happy Tuesday. Anything else you want to share with everyone today before we wrap up?
Thank you to Grace and thank you to these panelists. This was so awesome. I am so grateful.
Thank you
Hope
guys
you all
for the
slay your
invite.
careers.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much for
Great.
taking your time. We really appreciate it.
Great MC job, Heather.
Yeah, amazing job. Awesome.
Great.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to end the stream.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Okay, stream has been